I am coming back from a doctor's appointment. This particular doctor is definitely better in terms of his bedside manner than most. I don't know if he's helping me or not. Honestly, I suspect not, but it's still at least a reasonably pleasant experience. He's one of the few doctors who is actually trying to help, although I don't think what he's doing is helping me. He's at least treating me with respect, and what he's doing is not harming me in any way. I have to drive to and from a lot of doctor's appointments, and it's not fun. Just one of the many things I have to do. But on the positive side, my business is doing pretty well. And when you consider the limitations that I'm under, it's really pretty impressive what I've managed to accomplish. The feedback that I get is that I do a better job of explaining these concepts than anybody else. And I really think that is my talent, is I am able to understand and articulate these abstract financial concepts in a way that the average person can understand. When they hear it from me, they start to get it. When other people explain it, it's not quite clear to them. And it's because those other people don't understand themselves. They're just doing marketing. It's true in every line of work. The emperor has no clothes. In every line of work, the people who are most promoting themselves as experts are people who don't really know a whole lot. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect, I think is what it's called. Is that the people who are the least knowledgeable and the least competent and the least intelligent, they tend to overestimate themselves because they simplify everything. When they know one or two marketing slogans, they think they're now experts. Whereas people who have more intellectual depth know that knowing one or two marketing slogans doesn't make you an expert. Think of Socrates. When he was told that he was the wisest man on earth, he didn't believe it. And he went around to what he thought were the actual experts and asking them questions, and found out very quickly that a lot of these people who seemed to be intelligent and knowledgeable and experts on the surface really didn't know very much at all. Socrates concluded, if I am the wisest, it's because I know what I'm missing. It's because I know what I'm missing. That's what you find. The people who are the most knowledgeable, most intelligent, who have the most depth and breadth, tend to be the quietest because they know how much they're missing. They have more humility. They don't overestimate their own competence. If anything, they underestimate it. And marketing is a very different skill from actually understanding, apprehending, and explaining an abstract concept. And I have a lot of respect for people who are good at marketing. I'm not putting them down when I'm saying they're good at marketing. That is a skill. And it is a skill that does not come naturally to me. The people who succeed the most in this industry are the people who succeed the most in every industry, not the ones who actually can do the work the best and who understand it the best, but no, it's the people who are the best at marketing and sales. And that's neither good, bad, nor different. It just is the way of the world. It is what it is. You might have the best product in the world at the most competitive price, but if nobody knows about it, then it doesn't really matter. And if nobody knows about it, you have a marketing problem, not a product problem. And that's what most small business owners are struck with, is nobody knows you exist. Reaching the prospects you want to reach in the manner in which you want to reach them, that's where sales and marketing comes in. And that's the gap that most of us have in business. We have a product that's at least reasonably good at a price that's at least reasonably affordable. But communicating that is the hard part. I recently was on the Caleb Guilliam show, which I thank you so much, Caleb, for having me on your program. I really appreciate that. Caleb clearly has the abundance mindset. He could view me as a competitor, but that's not the way that he thinks. And that's not the way that successful people think. Chris Kirkpatrick or Caleb Williams or other people who are successful in my line of work, they're the people who are the most likely to help me, regardless of the fact that we could view each other as competition. I've spoken with Chris Kirkpatrick multiple times. Caleb, I've spoken with a couple of times. Denzel Rodriguez, DeAndre Clayton, all these guys are highly successful. They could view me as competition, but they don't. They have the abundance mindset. They realize that a rising tide lifts all ships, because in our line of work, we don't have a competition problem. I'm quoting Anthony Rushing, who does first lien HELOCs. He said the same thing, but it's similar with infinite banking. We don't have a competition problem. We have an awareness problem. So Anthony Rushing is not worried about competition because there are so few lenders that specialize in first lien HELOCs that can offer the specialized product that his bank does. The problem is most people don't even know a first lien HELOC is an option. They know all about a mortgage. Many of them have mortgages. They know all about a standard second position HELOC. Very few of them know about the first lien HELOC solution with Velocity Banking. So the more people who are talking about it, the better. So he would welcome more quote unquote competitors because a rising tide lifts all ships. So what happens when you engage in this cooperative activity is that your piece of the pie gets smaller, but the pie itself gets exponentially bigger. So you end up coming out way ahead. Maybe you were making $100,000 and that was 10% of the market. Now, because you've partnered with other people, now maybe you're only getting 5% of the market, but your income is now $400,000 because the market is that much bigger. It's counterintuitive. Everything about business and sales and marketing, for me, seems to be very counterintuitive. It's the opposite of what you might typically want to do. That's why giving credit to Brian Burns of the Brutally Honest B2B Sales Podcast. He has a lot of funny videos, especially if he did in the corporate world. And he says is very accurate. And one of the things he says is sales is counterintuitive. It is very true. You want to do the opposite of what your instinct would need to do. I've been partnering with Peter Nelson. Of course, I've always been partnering with Peter Nelson, but Peter Nelson, not too long ago, got his securities license. He can now give investment advice, and he can take assets under management. Most clients and prospects have some investment portfolio, either in a retirement account or a brokerage account, something somewhere. Or they maybe want to start investing somewhere. And for those clients, I don't do that myself, but potentially Peter could help them. And Peter has some interesting strategies with structured notes, some covered calls that are real financial strategies, not just buying mutual funds, but real financial strategies that actually generate yield that generate income, like 10 to 16% yield. Now, is there risk involved? Of course, there is definitely risk involved. Let's be clear. There are no guarantees here. We're talking about investments, so there is risk involved. That's it. And I would not be the right person to explain to you the strategy. We can meet with Peter together, and he can explain to you what he does, and you can decide if it makes sense for you. But that's something I've started to offer to my clients. If you're inclined to invest your money in the market, maybe take some of that money that you're investing, but you have already invested in the market, that you're earmarking future investment in the market, and maybe move some into Peter Nelson's strategy, which could potentially give you a very good yield, because you're already taking on market risk. So if you do the Peter Nelson strategy, I don't think you're increasing the risk, but you could potentially get a better and more consistent outcome. If you're putting your money in the market and you or your financial advisor are not using options in some way, I question whether you should be in the market to begin with. It's like being a real estate investor and buying a house, but not buying homeowners insurance. There are multiple different ways of using options, and the best ways of using options are not speculative, but to protect your positions to the downside or generate income from your positions. So it's all about income generation. Most people, when they put their money in the market, they're not paying attention and they're just buying index funds or mutual funds and just hoping it goes up in value, but they're not collecting any income and they have no protection to the downside. Using the rudimentary option strategy, which is what professional investors do, could give you both things. I've personally played around with options before. It's not this big, scary, complicated thing that is super risky. If you're willing to take the time to learn it, which is not hard, or have a financial advisor who can do it for you, it actually decreases your risk. One of the best experts in options that I learned from one of the points he kept hammering home is that options were invented as a way to decrease risk. Now, used improperly, they can increase risk. That's if you don't use options correctly, they can increase risk. So I'd be careful about using options to speculate. And if you do use options to speculate, then you have to be cautious with position sizes. Just simple examples. You can buy put options to protect your positions to the downside. You can sell naked puts in order to realize income. You can sell covered calls on your existing positions to realize income on those positions. Those can be great low-risk ways of protecting yourself to the downside and generating income because it's all about income. Increasing your cash flow by decreasing the money leaving your personal economy and increasing the money entering your personal economy. Ultimately, build up multiple streams of safe, reliable, passive income that then allow us to become financially free. Once you have enough safe, reliable, passive income that can cover your expenses, you become financially free. It's nice to accumulate a nest egg, but that nest egg only helps you insofar as it generates income. As you start selling your nest egg, as you start drawing it down, you can generate income. But how much income can you generate for the nest egg? We don't actually know. That's where an annuity could come in. When you annuitize your portfolio, you turn that portfolio into a guaranteed lifetime income stream. One that's fairly common to roll over an investment portfolio into an income annuity. So now you do know how much income you're going to get, and it's guaranteed to last for the rest of your life. One move, which Peter and I have done for some clients, is moving money into a fixed indexed annuity. What is a fixed indexed annuity? Take money you have in a retirement account, let's say. It could be in a brokerage account or it could be in a retirement account. And it's money that's in the market, mutual funds, index funds, your standard Wall Street investment vehicles. If you roll those assets over into a fixed indexed annuity, Peter's favorite is the GCU Aquila 10. We've done a video on it. What that annuity does is, number one, it protects you to the downside. A fixed indexed annuity is fixed, meaning you cannot lose money. If the market crashes down 30%, you don't lose a dime. You can even set it up so that your annuity is guaranteed to go up at least 2% every year. Not only are you protected to the downside, but if the market crashes down 30%, your annuity still goes up 2%. And then the second is an annuity generates superior income. An annuity is an income generation tool. When you reach retirement and you have your nest egg, the question is, how much income are you going to generate from that nest egg? With an annuity, you would know exactly how much and for how long. With the fixed index annuity, as you accumulate value in it, it will tell you every year what is the guaranteed lifetime income stream today. If you turn on the income today, maybe that number is $50,000. You can get a guaranteed lifetime income stream of $50,000. That's one way to do it, and that would be great. If you're really interested, read Moshe Milevsky's study entitled In Defense of Annuities. And what Moshe Milevsky's discovered is that over the long run, protection of the downside is more important than exposure to the upside. Over the long run, protection of the downside is more important than exposure to the upside. In my financial malpractice episode, we had this fiduciary who's clearly very ignorant about how any of this stuff works. He just throws out random terms like cap. So there's a cap on performance. What's actually capped is your risk. Do you want your risk to be limited or unlimited? That's the appropriate way of looking at it. If you just throw your money into the market with no protection at all, your risk is unlimited. If you put your money into, let's say, a fixed index annuity that has a cap, which, by the way, the annuity I'm talking about does not have a cap, but let's just say it does. What's capped is your risk. That's the appropriate way to look at it. So yes, in order to limit your exposure to the downside, they have to limit your exposure to the upside. But the Moshe Milevsky study shows that will give you a better outcome over the long run. If you put your money into a fixed index annuity where the floor is 0, you cannot lose any money, and let's say the cap is 10%, you cannot earn more than 10%. Over the long run, you can come out ahead. There will be some years that the market will do better. If the market goes up 20%, people that are in the market are going to be ahead. But when the market is down 20%, you'll be ahead. No, for the long run, you'll be ahead. And let me also say, when is the market up the most? It's very deceptive to look at average returns because when is the market up the most? When does the market go up the most? Well, the answer is it goes up the most right after a crash. So you look at that year, the market went up 30%. Amazing, right? But you didn't make any money because the market crashed down 30% the year before. So the market now has to go up more than 30% just for you to get back to even. So it's very deceptive. When the market goes up 30%, the person who was in the fixed index annuity is probably still ahead because they didn't lose anything to the market crunch. And so they're probably still ahead. That's the advantage of a fixed index annuity. Over the long run, if you put money into a fixed index annuity, as opposed to market fully exposed, according to the Moshe Milevsky study, you'll come out by a very significant margin by having your money in the fixed index annuity instead, the FIA. And you'll have the peace of mind knowing that your money is not at risk. So you don't have the psychological turmoil of wondering what might happen to your money that's at risk in the market. You can have the peace of mind knowing you can never lose any money. What other benefits does this particular fixed index annuity come with? The GCU Aquila House. Number one, the 10% bonus. If you deposit $100,000, you get an immediate $10,000 bonus. There are two different versions of the annuity. There is the fee version and the no fee version. You can get the no fee version where there's no fee charged on an annual basis. And in that case, I believe you get a 55% participation rate, meaning whatever index you attach it to, you get 55% of the upside. If the index goes up 10%, your indexed annuity goes up 5.5%. If you take the product that has the 95 basis point fee, so a little under 1%, which by the way is very comparable to what any investment advisor would charge you if he's taking your assets under management, you then get a 70% participation rate. So the market index goes up 10%, your annuity goes up 7%. And you get long-term care protection. So let's say the guaranteed income stream you can get is $50,000 at present. If you were to have some kind of a long-term care event, that income stream would double to $100,000 as long as you have that long-term care need for up to 10 years. This can be a great way to get some long-term care protection because I don't think medical underwriting is necessary for the equivalent. Anyone can qualify. This can be great for someone who is worried about long-term care but is not healthy enough or is too old to qualify for or is too expensive to buy a long-term care insurance policy or get some other form of more standard long-term care protection. Those are a couple of benefits of taking the fee. People run away from fees, they understand, obviously. But what you want is not to be charged as low a fee as possible. What you want is to get the most cost-effective solution that's going to solve your problem. In some cases, that might be to take the fee version. In some cases, that might be to take the no-fee version. As an example, we had a client who already thankfully had some very robust long-term care protection in place. So he felt pretty confident about the long-term care insurance that he had with good reason. So for him, getting that extra long-term care protection wasn't super valued. So for him, we opted for the no-fee version. That makes sense. There was an episode where Peter and I went through an illustration. And by the way, the product has improved even more from when Peter and I reviewed the product. So it's actually even better today. They've made some more tweaks to the product. So what are the downsides to the annuity? So let's talk about that and how we can minimize and manage those. There are two major downsides to a fixed index annuity, really any annuity. But first is there's a loss of liquidity. That's always going to be the case. You will lose some liquidity. And secondly, you don't get full exposure to the upside. We've explained why protection of the downside is more important than exposure to the upside in the long run. That's true. But in fairness, that is a negative. The market goes rip-roaring up 30%. You're not going to see a 30% increase in your fixed index annuity. With regard to the loss of liquidity, when you look at the Aquila as an example, there's a 10-year surrender charge. The surrender charge starts at, I think, 10% if you were to surrender the annuity year one. And then that surrender charge goes down 9%, 8%, 7%, all the way down to 0. There's always going to be a loss of liquidity. There's no free lunch. That's one of the trade-offs. But keep in mind, yes, there's a surrender charge, but you got a 10% bonus. So if you got a 10% bonus, that fully offsets the surrender charge anyway. With the GCU Aquila, you can actually get all your money back in year 2. The loss of liquidity is fairly minimal because of that bonus. And then we don't have full exposure to the upside. That is what it is. We cannot really mitigate that. I'm trying to meet people more where they are. And most people are still in the Wall Street paradigm. They want to take their money, park it in a retirement account or index funds or mutual funds, and hope and pray that it will go up in value at a certain rate. Those people are probably not going to be open to alternative strategies like the infinite banking funds, which, by the way, doesn't compete with that. Whole life insurance doesn't compete with any of that. But what I found is people who are in that paradigm are just not open to these alternative strategies, even though in theory you can be both. You can use whole life insurance as your primary financing vehicle, and you can invest your money into those same mutual funds. But I find it's a different philosophy. And so people who follow that tend not to be as open. However, a fixed indexed annuity is less of a stretch for those people because those people still don't like the risk. They still don't like the headache of knowing they could lose money. They still don't like the unknowns. Maybe we can take a portion of your assets and move it from being fully at risk in the market to a fixed index annuity where you're still getting exposure to the upside, but now you have downside protection. That can be a very positive move, and that could potentially open their minds in the future to some other ideas as they see that fixed index annuity grow, and especially as they see when the market crashes or is down, their annuity doesn't lose value. They get a feeling for the psychological benefits of having that stability. Then potentially they might start being open to other assets as well that are not inside the Wall Street paradigm. Changing people's paradigm is really challenging. People are either open or they're not. The people who are open tend to be people who are still searching. They haven't found something that really makes sense yet. And if they are following the standard Wall Street paradigm, they're not entirely comfortable with it. They're maybe doing it just because that's what they've been told they should be doing, or that's what their neighbors are doing, or they haven't found anything else. And then when a different paradigm comes along, they're very open. That, unfortunately, is a small percentage of the population. Most people are simply not open to having their paradigm changed, even though many of them have never really consciously thought through their current paradigm. It's something that they picked up through osmosis from being in the world. And what most of us pick up through osmosis is what Wall Street has created for us, an investment paradigm that mostly, in my opinion, benefits Wall Street, not as much us. Follow what these guys do, not what they say, but what they do. Look at what the banks do. Look at what the big corporations do. Look at what these wealthy people are doing, not what they're saying. And what you find is banks, corporations, wealthy people own large amounts of contractual wealth, mostly whole life insurance and annuities. Contractual wealth, which is different from statement wealth. Contractual wealth comes with guarantees. Statement wealth does not. Who's absorbing the risk? That's the question. Who's absorbing the risk? With your statement wealth, let's say you look at your 401k statement and you see what your balance is today. What's your balance going to be tomorrow? Nobody knows. Could it lose value? Yes, it could. There are no guarantees. So you, the customer, are absorbing the risk. When it comes to contractual wealth, like with whole life insurance and annuities, somebody else is absorbing the risk. The insurance company, they are the ones absorbing the risk because they are the ones guaranteeing that your contract will not lose value. An annuity is a contract. A whole life insurance policy is a contract. Let me be clear, I am not talking about variable life insurance or variable annuities. When it comes to variable universal life insurance or variable annuities or even indexed universal life insurance, there are not the same guarantees. Indexed universal life is not the same as variable universal life, but still there are not the same guarantees as in whole life insurance. I'm talking only about whole life insurance and fixed annuities, not talking about variable contracts, because those are still at risk. They are still exposed to market risk. You need to be securities licensed to sell those because they come with market risk. So you're not really removing yourself from market risk.